Structure of eyeball. The wall of the eyeball is made up of three concentric layers. The outermost sclerotic layer, or we call it as sclera, the middle choroid, and the innermost retina. We are going to discuss them in detail one by one. Starting with the outermost layer, that is the sclerotic layer. This layer is made up of fibrous tissue and is white in color. The front white portion of the eye, which is visible from outside, that is the part of sclerotic layer only. It bulges out from the front part of the eye, and this bulged out portion of the sclera is transparent also. And this transparent part of the sclera is called as cornea. We call that transparent outer bulge out portion of the sclera as a cornea, and it allows light to enter through it towards the lens to form its image on the retina. Now, in some of the patient, the cornea, the transparent part of the sclera, become opaque or white, and as it become opaque, it become functionless. In those cases, this defected cornea is replaced by a healthy cornea from the donated eye. Now, eye donation. Before eye donation, now look, this is the 3D image of our eyeball. This white portion of the eyeball, this is the sclerotic layer. It is the outermost layer of our eye. From the front side, from here, it is transparent. As it is transparent, this dark color part is from the middle layer, which is visible here. Now after that, now this sclerotic layer, now if this transparent portion, which is called as cornea, if it become opaque, then from that portion of the cornea, light is not able to enter our eyes. So it become functionless. During that case, in that case, this defected cornea is replaced by the healthy cornea from the donated eye. Now, eye donation. Now, cornea remain alive up to 40 hours after the death of the person. So, if the eyes are removed from the body within 4 hours after death, and then they are preserved in a suitable liquid at low temperature like blood plasma, then the cornea of this donated eye can be used to replace the cornea of the defected eyes. These days, AIIMS has developed one more technique, that is the slicing of cornea. By the slicing of cornea, the cornea of one donated eye is used to replace the cornea of many defected eyes. So this is all about the first layer, that is the outermost layer, sclera. Next, the choroid layer. The choroid layer is the middle layer of our eyeball. It is present on the inner side of the sclera. This layer is highly vascular. Highly vascular means it is richly supplied with blood vessels which provide nourishment to all parts of our eye. It also contains a dark black color pigment. This dark black color pigment is called as melanin pigment, which prevent light rays from reflecting and scattering inside the eyes. From the front side, that is near the cornea, the choroid layer is expanded to form one body, and that body is called ciliary body. This ciliary body contains smooth muscles, that are circular muscles, which help in altering the shape of the lens according to our requirement to see the objects. Now the next structure which is associated with this layer, that is the choroid layer, is iris. Now this iris is also an extension of the choroid layer, partially covering the lens, leaving a small opening at the center, and the opening which is present at the center of this iris, that is called as pupil. This is the hole, or this is the opening from where light enter into the eye towards the lens. Now, this iris which partially cover the lens, it is made up of two types of muscles. The two types of muscles which are present in iris are radial muscles and circular muscles. Together these muscles, they help in regulating the size of the pupil to regulate the amount of light entering the eyes to make the image or to see the objects. Now, the radial muscles which are present there, these radial muscles help in widening the size of the pupil, and the circular muscles, they help in constructing the size of the pupil to adjust the amount of light entering our eyes. So, choroid layer, the middle layer, richly supplied with blood vessels, and melanin pigment is also present in this layer only. From the front side, choroid layer is expanded to form ciliary body, which alter the shape of the lens, and the another extension of choroid layer is iris, which partially cover the lens, leaving a small opening at the center. The opening which is present at the center is called as pupil. The size of the pupil is again regulated by the iris only. So the function of iris is to regulate the amount of light entering our eyes by adjusting the size of the pupil. Now how the size of the pupil is adjusted by the iris? Beta, iris is made up of two types of muscles, radial muscles and circular muscles. Radial muscles, they help in widening the size of the pupil, and circular muscles, they help in constructing the size of the muscles according to the light present in our surrounding. So this is all about the choroid layer. Now the next layer which we are going to start is the innermost layer of our eye wall, that is retina. Retina is the innermost layer of our eye and it is sensitive to light. It contains two types of sensory cells. We call them as photoreceptors. They are rods and cones. So the innermost layer of the eye, that is retina, image is formed at this part of the eye as it contains two types of photoreceptors here, rods and cones. Now the rods, they are the rod-like cells. Rods are the rod-like cells which are sensitive to dim light, but they do not respond to color. These rod cells, they are uniformly distributed throughout the retina and they help us to see in dim light. And they contain one pigment in them. The name of the pigment, that is very important, that is rhodopsin pigment. Rods contain rhodopsin pigment in them. The another name for rhodopsin pigment is visual purple pigment, and it helps us to see in dim light. They are sensitive to dim light only. The another type of photoreceptors are cones. Cones, as they are conical in shape, they are sensitive to bright light. Cones are sensitive to bright light and they are also responsible for our color vision. Means they also help us to see the color of the object. They contain a pigment, iodopsin, or the another name for iodopsin pigment is visual violet pigment. These cones, they are confined to one place in our eye, and that place where these cones are present, that is called as yellow spot. Again I am repeating, the innermost layer of the eye is retina. It contains two types of photoreceptors, rods and cones. Together these photoreceptors help us to see the things. Rod cells, they are sensitive to dim light, means they help us to see the things in low light or in dark, but they do not respond to color. That's why at night we are not able to see the exact color of the things, as at night only rod cells are working. Cones, they are sensitive to bright light and they are responsible for our color vision. The pigment which is present in cone is iodopsin pigment, or the another name is visual violet pigment, whereas the pigment which is present in rods is rhodopsin pigment or visual purple pigment. Rods, they are distributed throughout the retina, but cones, they are restricted at one place, and the place where they are restricted, that is the yellow spot, the area of west vision. The next structure related to our eye is yellow spot, the area of west vision. The another name for yellow spot is macula lutea. Macula means spot and lutea, that is luteum, yellow in color. This yellow spot, it is present at the back of the eye, almost at the center on the horizontal axis of the eyeball. This is the center of the horizontal axis of the eyeball. So at the back, at this place, at the center of the horizontal axis, this yellow spot is present. This spot contains maximum number of rods and cones. As the maximum number of rods and cones are present here, this area is the area of brightest vision in our eye. There is one another name for the yellow spot, that is fovea centralicis. Fovea means window and centralicis means at the center. So yellow spot is also known as macula lutea or fovea centralicis. It contains maximum number of sensory cells. That's why it is called as area of brightest vision. If the image of the object is formed at this part of the eye, that image is the brightest one and the clear one. That's why when we are reading from the book, we move our eyes from word to word. That is because we are fixing the image of those words at this spot to get a clear image. Location of yellow spot is very, very important. Its function is also very important. Location, I repeat, it lies at the back of the eye, almost at the center of the horizontal axis of the eye wall. And it is the area of brightest vision. Why it is called as an area of brightest vision? Because it contains maximum number of rods and cone cells. Now, next structure is blind spot. The location of blind spot is lateral to the yellow spot on the nasal side. So here this blind spot is present. Here no sensory cells are present. As no sensory cells are present, so that's why this is the spot of no vision. No image is formed at this part of the eye as no sensory cells are present here. Now this is the point where the nerve fibers, that is the axon of all the sensory cells which are present in the eyeball, they bundle together to form optic nerve. Blind spot, it is a point where the nerve fibers of all sensory cells which are present in our eye, they bundle together to form optic nerve. So as only nerve fibers are present, no sensory cell, no photoreceptor is present here. So that's why this area is called as area of no vision, or we call it as blind spot. Now after this, the most important structure of the eye, that is eye lens. The eye lens is a transparent, flexible, biconvex, crystalline body which is located just behind the pupil. Again I repeat, eye lens is transparent, flexible, biconvex in shape. It is a crystalline body which is located just behind the pupil. It contains transparent lens fibers, and this lens is held in the position by the special type of ligaments, and those ligaments are called as suspensory ligament. These suspensory ligament, they hold the lens at position. From the front side, the lens is also held up by the ciliary muscles, or we call it as ciliary body. These ciliary muscles, they help in altering the shape of the lens to change its focal length according to our requirement. So after the lens, now this is all about the lens. After that, the next part of the eye, that is two chambers which are present in our eye. Lens divide the entire inner cavity of the eye wall into two chambers. The first chamber, which is present in front of the lens, aqueous chamber, and the another chamber which is present behind the lens, that is vitreous chamber. Aqueous chamber, it is a chamber which is present in between cornea and the lens. This chamber which is present in between cornea and the lens is called as aqueous chamber. It is filled with one watery fluid called as aqueous humor. This aqueous humor, it serves two functions for our eye. First, it keeps the lens moist and protect it from physical shock. And second, it helps in refraction of light. Again I repeat, aqueous humor, that watery fluid which is present inside the aqueous chamber, it keeps the lens moist and also protect it from the physical shocks. And another thing, it also help in refraction of light. The another large chamber which is present behind the lens, between lens and the retina, it is called as vitreous chamber. This vitreous chamber is also filled with one jelly-like fluid called as vitreous humor. Again, this vitreous humor also serves two functions for our eye. First, it helps in keeping the shape of the eyeball. It helps eye to keep its shape, and it also protects the retina and its nerve ending. So it serves two shape. It provides proper shape to the eye wall, and it also helps in the protection of retina. With this, we have completed all the structures which are related to our eye wall. Revise it thoroughly. Next, we are going to start with how do we see.